Come on in, sit back and relax. You're listening to episode 241 of the WealthTech Today podcast. And I'm your host, Craig Iskowitz, founder of Ezra Group Consulting. And this podcast features news, information, updates, and analysis all around wealth management technology. And this is our May news roundup. We got a bunch of interesting stories from you and two special guests to talk to me about the news, which you will hear momentarily. And I recorded some of this while I was traveling. I was out last week and the week before on conferences. I was at the InvestNet conference out in Phoenix, and then last week I was out at a client meeting in Texas. So you might hear different microphones. I didn't pack my big honking microphone that I'm talking on now. So I apologize for the sound differences in some of the stories. But the content is there, isn't it? Really, what it's all about, the content. All right, so we're going to kick off a bunch of stories, and I will introduce them all and our special guests. But before I do that, let's talk a bit about RIA tech stacks. At Ezra Group, we've seen tech stacks of hundreds of RIAs, and let me tell you, most of them are loaded down with tech debt. So you shouldn't feel too bad about yours. But let's face it, tech debt is like a giant anchor holding back your business growth. If you want to free your firm for exponential growth, you should run, not walk, to our website, ezragroup.com, and fill out the Contact Us form. Our experienced team can evaluate your current tech ecosystem, deliver targeted recommendations, optimize your existing systems and operations, or run an RFP and help you implement new software to take your firm to the next level. You can take advantage of our free consultation offer by going to ezragroup.com.
All right, here we are with the news, and I want to introduce our special guest, a common contributor or a regular contributor to the news. Joining me is Kristen Schmidt, founder and CEO of RIA Oasis Consulting Firm. Hey, Kristen.
Hi, how are you?
Fantastic. So I noticed no one can see because we're on a podcast, but I can see you here. That you got a nice tan. How'd you get that in Wisconsin? I don't understand.
Honestly, it was a total fluke. It's never going to happen again in May, but we did get a little bit of good weather here in the Midwest. So we take advantage of it when we can.
So if I can understand the logic here, you went out ice fishing last night and it was so sunny that you got a tan.
Exactly. And then at the end of the night after my day, I turned my heat on because it got cold again. So yes,
As
all of the above.
In Wisconsin. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. All right. So what we're going to talk about is conferences. And you had a couple questions for me about conferences. So shoot.
Yeah. So the past year or so, I have taken a break from going to conferences. So you know that I always love to hear your feedback. And I think you and I often have feedback coming from different perspectives. What are the takeaways in general? But also you and I have takeaways in a sense of being a networking opportunity, right? And knowing so many people in the industry for so long versus what is it like being at these conferences in today's world? Being the owner or operator or very important person at an RIA. So I wanted to ask you, first of all, you were at the InvestNet conference, correct?
I was.
Okay. So in general, first of all, give us the Cliff Note version. What did you think about it and its impact?
I've been going to the InvestNet conference for many years. This is at least more than 10 years I've been going. And it gets better every year. Obviously, they build out their platform more every year. They get a wider group of clients, and they're unique in that they've both got a very large market share in enterprise, broker dealers, and national RIAs, as well as smaller RIAs or one office RIAs, as well as $1 billion and up RIAs. So it's the Tamarack platform, and then we used to call ENV2, which they now call Unified Wealth Platform on the enterprise side. So it's a nice mix of firms that attend the InvestNet conference. Their focus this year, they've always got a mission or a tagline, and it had in the past been financial wellness. They're focusing a lot on their wellness platform and their budgeting and other financial planning and other tools. And they're still doing something like that, but they just switched the positioning a bit to a more what they're calling holistic wealth management, which is a common phrase, a common jargon in our industry. We hear holistic a lot, but I think out of all the companies that claim to be holistic, Envestnet's probably the closest to being that, looking at their wide range of capabilities. They're one of the vendors that have both technology and turnkey asset management platform and outsourced middle office services that can scale to some of the very largest firms out there. And we do conversions to and from Envestnet and to and from all the big vendors. And Envestnet is one of the ones we've been getting calls for mostly in the last couple of years. I think most firms are still going to Envestnet, at least from what we're seeing in the work that we do. And this conference, they were focusing on 6 areas. One is user experience. 2 is UMH, which has been going on for many years. 3, portfolio management. They're expanding and building out more tools and capabilities around portfolio management, specifically around trading. Actionable data. We really liked that we were digging in deep into their data insights, and they've been building out a data platform, and they launched a data platform last year. And we really like some of the things. I'll go into that later. 5th is holistic proposal, and 6th is custodial connectivity and their own custodial services. So that's really where we're seeing the focus from Envestnet this year.
I think that Envestnet has had a challenge in the past years for a couple reasons, in my opinion. And obviously, with me working directly in the independent RIA space, I see more of Tamarac, where you see more of Envestnet, which is why I wanted to bring this up today, because I think it's a really good mix. On the Tamarac side of things, it has always been evolving and growing and modernizing. Obviously, with their long time ago purchase of Yodlee, then their purchase of Money Guide, it makes sense where all these pieces are fitting. On the Envestnet side, I think they've had more of a challenge because of their legacy systems that have needed to modernize and also connect with these newer systems. So for example, when you have a firm that needs the enterprise version and Tamarac, right? They're opening up some TAMP accounts, and then they're also using Tamarac for their managed assets. Envestnet has still been trying to close the gap of all of that technology talking well to each other while still giving it a good advisor experience. So I think it's awesome that they created kind of those 6 pillars, if you will, to kind of show where they're going. Would you agree that I think these conferences are helpful for firms who are trying to figure out where these large companies are going, and especially if you're using them and following with them?
I think they're helpful in a number of ways. One is, when we go to the conference, a lot of our clients are there, but also prospective clients. So it helps if you're kicking the tires to go to the conference and hear from the vendor, see what's on their roadmap, see what they're releasing, get demos of their different products, because there's always a million demo stations around as you can get reviews of anything. So it's really good for that. It's really good for hands-on understanding or asking some questions maybe you didn't get a chance to ask in other interactions with the vendor, and also to talk to other clients who are there. So if you network with other wealth management firms, you can hear from them. Hey, why did you pick Envestnet? What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? Right? Because they're not perfect. They've got a lot of issues, as all vendors have issues. Sometimes salespeople will take liberties with what is available and what works and doesn't work. And then you don't find out until after you sign the contract that, oh yeah, the sales guy promised this, but that's not working yet. Well, that doesn't work the way you think it works. And that's where we come in a lot. We get called in to make things work or to help with integrations or help with maybe building out some capabilities.
Exactly. I talk with, you and I obviously talk with a lot of people in the industry. And I always feel like there are so many conferences now. All the vendors have them. There's always different takes, different personas of conferences, and advisors now need to choose which ones are right for them. But I do think that there's a challenge for conferences of always keeping the panels fresh and into what's interesting and valuable. We can talk all day long with these advisors, and planners are looking for tactical things. I can take that, what I heard, what I learned, and I can bring it back to my firm. A lot of what we do when we work together, right, is kind of bringing it to life. What did you think about the panels? And I understand you might be biased about one specific panel, possibly,
I don't
maybe.
know what you're talking about, Kristen.
The one you were on and starred in as the
Oh,
celebrity.
right. Thanks. Yeah, I was on a panel, wasn't I? Yeah. Well, of course, my panel was the best.
Yeah.
I like the panels. I didn't get to go as many as I wanted to. There was, I find the panels where there are the RIA aggregators or the um, nationwide RIAs that are talking about their strategies, how they're attracting advisors, how they're building their tech platforms. Those are often the most interesting to me. And there was those as well. Um, there was a good panel on RIA trends and research by that was moderated by Phil Rogerson, who's head of RIA strategy at Envestnet, and he put out a number that I've heard similar, which is the concentration of assets at the top RIA firms, where I always thought it was like 15 and 85 or something, where 15% of the largest RIAs have 85% of the assets. But Phil was quoting Cerulli at 6% of RIA firms manage 70% of the assets, which
Mm,
is some pretty serious consolidation
wow.
at the top. So the other 94% of RIAs are fighting for that remaining 30% of assets. And
Hmm.
when it comes to a lot of these firms, and we get calls from RIA aggregators, help us build out their platform, help us improve, because they need great technology and operations if they're going to attract these advisors, because all the advisors talk and they know who's got the best, and you're moving downstream to a younger cohort now that expect better technology and better scalability. So that's something we work on a lot. So I liked Phil's panel. Another statistic that someone threw out was 26% of high net worth households are self-directed. So it requires a determined effort in marketing to target those households and get them to transfer those assets over and get that wallet share over to the advisor's firm. Talent management's a big motivator. So really understanding how to attract the best advisors to your firm is important.
Wow. Yeah, it's interesting. I was having a conversation with one of my clients recently, and it was mentioned that a lot of times back in the day, we used to go to conferences because that's when all the announcements happened, right?
Mhm.
You got to learn all the new, and I like to call that the bling talk, right?
Mm.
Kind of like when Apple releases their annual release and we all get excited about the new releases. And my client said to me, that's not much a thing anymore, is it? And I said, well, no, releases happen anytime, and that can be done through media spots and podcasts and all the other things. But also, there's not much more to do. There's not a lot of big announcements anymore. Now it's more getting people adopted to this type of technology and running your business through it. And you're seeing these conferences starting to shift about how you do things, not what you should use as much. Especially when it is the vendor putting on the conference. Of course, they want you using Envestnet and Tamarac, so there's no questions here, right? And so I think that that's really where we're shifting, is a lot of the announcements we've been seeing in the news lately, or how releases are coming out. They're small but valuable. But most of these announcements are more about the people at the companies that are shifting rather than the tech itself having a really big overhaul. And that's actually because the tech is at the level that it's sufficient and it's doing what it was intended to do. It's just now all of these firms have to take the time to write their processes around it, which takes really long time.
I'm going to disagree with you. There's still announcements at conferences, especially T3. Joel's done a good job in getting sponsors to save their announcements for his conference. So they do have a fair number. And each vendor's conference, I was at Orion's conference last month, or was it 2 months ago? They save their announcements for their own conference, and Envestnet does the same. So there are still some. There's still a fair number.
They're not as impactful as they used to be. Those changes and the things that they're announcing, most of these companies, if you build it, they will come. They have built it. What they're announcing are more enhancements and optimizations to things rather than big builds, big releases. Usually, sometimes you and I were actually at a conference years ago where there was a purchase that was told directly at a conference, which was when a company buys another company. That's always a big one, correct? But is a lot of these larger companies, there's not much more to build. There's a lot more to optimize and enhance.
I would agree. Well, that's just the nature of, as you mentioned earlier, legacy vendors. When you're becoming as successful as an Envestnet or an Orion, by definition, they become a legacy vendor, and their tech is going to get old because they've been around long enough. They've shown that they are capable. They've gathered enough market share. Their tech is going to become legacy, and that's the difficult part, is how do you keep modernizing? How you're jumping off the cliff, and how are you building the Porsche engine or the airplane as you're flying down?
Absolutely.
These firms have to do the same thing. They can't disrupt their current clients, yet they have to keep modernizing the back end.
That's exactly the challenge. And also it brings around that theory of you can be good at a lot of things instead of great at a few things, right? And so being good at a lot of things, there's nothing wrong with it, but it is a challenge of, gosh, we've got a lot of things to work on. How do we prioritize that? And that's happening a lot. I think Envestnet and Tamarack have been trudging through that for a very long time, and they've gotten very good at balancing that. And I think, to your point, Orion's just learning how to do that as kind of the newer platform, if you will, having all those pieces and aligning them.
Let me throw out a couple other notes I have here from the conference. And again,
Envestnet is unique in some respects in that they serve a wide range of firms, including RIAs, RIA aggregators, broker-dealers, bank trust. They've got a retirement business, corporate retirement, that they work with other fintech firms as well as asset managers. That's a very wide range of client segments to have to provide services and capabilities to, because while there's a lot of overlap, there's also some unique requirements, and all their different solutions, as well as their TAMP and as well as their proprietary models. One of the things we were dinging Envestnet on the last couple of years was their proposal, and that it wasn't really integrated very well across the platform. So there was a lot of task switching, and they've done a good job, at least what we saw at this conference, of finally getting that going. So there was a couple of fits and starts, and they made some promises, they didn't deliver, but now they finally have gotten that going. Their proposal is integrated now. You can do it from multiple places. You can go to Money Guide, directly fund a plan from there, or run a proposal. You can do it from Tamarack. You've got integration with Yodlee. So I think their digital delivery of the proposal plus Money Guide plus account opening is finally to the point where they're taking advantage of those acquisitions, and it's becoming more, it appears more to be a seamless, non-task switched experience.
And that's where it's an impact to current clients, and new prospective clients won't even know what the old experience was, right? They get to be a part of the new one. But you and I also know what it took for Envestnet to get to that point.
Yes, so it took a long time, and there was a lot of bitching and moaning on our part and their existing clients. But that's what happens when you have this type of company, when you're this large. It's just difficult to connect all these pieces together because of all the issues you run into, and also a lot of your roadmap and a lot of your development resources are sucked up with your existing clients and things that they want. So being able to build innovative stuff, the amount of time you have available for that is squeezed.
Agreed. And I think the last piece I would add to that is, this is the challenge that all hybrid firms have. Whether you're a hybrid because you have some assets on a TAMP and some that you manage yourself, or whether you are truly working with a broker dealer and also have independent RIA assets, oftentimes you are forced or required to use different systems depending upon where those assets are and what systems like Envestnet or Tamarack might support them. And so I think it's this combination of the vendors making changes and adapting, but also these firms where they have different business models all under one umbrella. And that can be a challenge when you're talking about tech, for sure.
You are correct. So
Mhm.
everyone listening, if you want to catch my commentary on the conference, you can go to Twitter or X as Craig at Craig Iskowitz. You can scroll through my timeline and see my tweets from the conference last week. I also posted a couple of posts on LinkedIn about the conference summary, a review of the head of development, Molly Weiss, what she was talking about, Facts Not Figma. Their EVP of business lines, Tom Sipp, he gave a great overview of their new functionality and some of the things they're working on. So I did a summary of that on LinkedIn, so you can check those out. And I'll have a couple of more articles on our blog about those presentations and about my panel, as Kristen happily reminded me. That'll be on our blog as well in a week or two. Kristen, thanks a lot for being here and interviewing me about conferences.
Of course.
All right, next up, we're back with Kristen. And Kristen, you're going to announce what news the story is we're going to be talking about now.
Yeah, I thought it'd be interesting to go over as wealthmanagement.com and other outlets reported that Right Capital is launching their own proprietary integrated risk tolerance tool. So just to kind of set the stage in the background, as everyone knows, Right Capital, the fastest growing financial planning tool in the industry and very well used and dominated in the financial planning space. Craig, your team and my team, when we work together, we often say it's part of the big three, right? You've got eMoney, Investment Money Guide, and Right Capital is right there up and coming, considering the short time that it has been on the market and how much it has dominated and been adopted by advisors. Right Capital has recently released a workflow and tasking tool within their software, and we talked about that a couple months ago. And very quietly, but surprisingly, has now also released their own risk tolerance tool. So as it mentions, as the article mentions, obviously it's their first iteration of offering risk within the financial planning space. None of the other competitors are doing that so far. So I think it's an interesting take to really talk about, is this where financial planning is going, right? We have the other risk competitors in the space, especially the one we all know and love, Nitrogen, AKA used to be Riskalyze. But what do you think about a financial planning tool releasing kind of this, I'm going to say extra tool, but obviously at a compliance level, very much needed and required. But it's within a financial planning tool. What do you think about that?
I think it's a natural progression. I mean, all the financial planning tools have some element of risk. They just don't have a full-blown risk tolerance questionnaire.
I completely agree. And what I call that is risk tolerance on a napkin, which the SEC isn't very fond of us doing. But if you can prove that you've had the conversation to identify a client's risk and then match that identifier to the way that you're investing and modeling your client's assets, you're good. But the way that needs to be documented and also updated is, I agree, a very natural progression of financial planning and the financial planning process. Where there's challenges in the risk space is that how risk is calculated and the questions you ask to gain that information are all very controversial in our industry. You have the conversation of risk being a score versus risk being a stress tester. You have financial wellness. How do you feel about these changes that could happen to you in the world versus what would you do if these changes happened, right? How would you feel if you lost $1 million, or what would you want to do if you lost $1 million, or different questions and different ways that risk is approached in the industry. I feel like risk is the natural progression, but I also believe that you can't do risk without some type of investment policy statement or proposal. And so I feel like when companies or vendors step into the risk space, you have to finish it off with a proposal. Financial planning tools do scenario-based planning and give scenarios or proposed plan options, which I think is great. That needs to be matched with the risk. And then the advisor and client really need to make the decision of what are we doing. So sometimes when you walk into risk, I feel like the IPS or that proposal space gets a little lost.
Well, that's one thing I like about what InvestNet's doing, in that they've always had a proposal. It used to be you couldn't open an account without a proposal on InvestNet. They refused, right?
Correct.
Right? They forced you to, whether you wanted to or not. They've since changed that, but that, the capabilities where they now integrated it into Money Guide. So you can run through that starter proposal, go into Money Guide, do the plan, bring it back in the proposal, open the account, all this nice workflow. That's really where the future is going, because that way you have an integrated experience.
I agree. The challenge is that most independent RIAs are not exclusively, or even, 50% of them are not using InvestNet primarily. And even if you're using Tamarack, that option isn't available. It lives on the other side of the enterprise space, which is the challenge. And then you have what's left, which is nitrogen. And then you also have the old hidden levers, now named Orion Risk, on the Orion side, that a lot of firms have the opportunity to use. That is the difference between scoring versus risk stress testing. And I think that there's a difference there. Orion will tell you as fact that 75% or more of firms that are using the hidden levers version of Orion Risk, the firms that are using that are using it because of the proposal tool. They're using it because they want that outcome and to present it, because that's how they run their business.
Interesting, isn't it?
Point of requiring it. So
Wasn't that interesting when we found that out?
yes.
You would
Exactly.
expect that. You think, well, they're using for stress testing. Oh no, they're using it for proposal.
Nope. And there's a means to an end, and that's the end, what we're all looking for at a compliant level, and then also at a client relationship communication level, setting the stage for that new client, experience, and also opening of an account and investing them. Going back to the right capital piece, this is huge because eMoney and Money Guide are not doing this. And even the supportive financial planning tools, they stay away from risk because there are independent tools. So Right Capital definitely has the upper hand. I think that firms need to begin using it and tell us what they think, right? So there's a little testing that needs to happen. But I think it's definitely a smart next choice for Right Capital to gain more of the industry support and adoption of their tool. We've talked about this before, you and I think it's just, it has to be said. If a firm wants to convert to a new financial planning tool, there is no conversion like you would take your data to a new CRM or to a new portfolio management system. There is no apples to apples conversion for financial planning tools. So you have to recreate all that data in the new system. And so oftentimes firms struggle to convert. Will this bring new firms to use Right Capital, in your opinion? That's the question.
I think so. I think it's only going to help. The more features they add, the more they become more capable, and the more firms that maybe were holding back might decide to jump in.
Yeah, would agree.
If you can plug in, like we're deploying these capabilities to clients right now. For example, Nitrogen has a proposal generation system, as well as model management and their own investment analytics. So we're working with a firm that is heavy on the investment strategy side. They build their own models. They like the way Nitrogen does it because they can plug their models in, get them analyzed, and then feed that into the proposals generation, all in one place, right? Whereas other firms can't do that because they only have one or the other. They don't have those things connected. They have risk. There's a lot of risk firms out. There's over a dozen risk firms on the Keats's Ezra Group AdvisorTech map, but none of them have proposal gen. They're just standalone risk.
Right. It used to be a standalone area of that tech map years ago. There was proposal generation tools. Those have all been eaten up and bought out or built out and added into other tools. And so you're right. It's a gap in the industry. Nitrogen is filling it well. Even, Orion Risk is filling it well. They do the same by then allowing that proposal to be generated and that feeding into the model generation, as well as their Eclipse trading and rebalancing tool. So it's all there. That's kind of my point with this Right Capital piece. I think it's a great start for them. advisors themselves are not doing a great job of risk, if they're being honest. They are doing risk on the back of the napkin sometimes. I know my client, I talked to Jim, I think he's a conservative growth guy, but they didn't ask the questions and they didn't put it through a proposal tool and they didn't run scenarios. So at a compliant level, this is smart, but it does, I think, require the next iteration of this to be leaning towards a proposal tool, because that is the next piece of it. But for now, does it get advisors to document, ask the questions, and keep the information, along with, to be fair, right? Capital can also hold the models and do a lot of that for you as you go to invest. It gives another option for advisors to choose from. So I think that's also part of the predicament. I'm excited for them and what they're doing very much, but it's just another thing that another company is doing that adds an element of question to advisors as to what should I be using.
And if you are an RIA or broker dealer listening to this and you have questions about financial planning, give us a call at Ezra Group. Go to our website, fill out the contact us form. We also do a lot of research. If you're a vendor in the financial planning space, we do a lot of research in all these areas. Financial planning, one of our main areas of focus. We do a very, very deep analysis of financial planning features, functionality for road mapping, as well as comparison and competitive analysis there. Kristen, thanks a lot. This was fun.
Of course, as always, such a pleasure.
Later. Okay, next up in the news, this is our special guest episode. We have multiple special guests. My guest to talk about some news stories here is none other than Aaron Klein. Aaron,
great to be with you.
Industry legend.
I don't know about that, but great to be with you. Great to be with you.
Co-founder, former CEO of Riskalized Nitrogen Wealth. Now, free man about town.
There you go.
And executive in residence at Ezra Group.
That's true. We got to do some projects together, man. This is cool.
We are. But in the meantime, we're going to do some news.
All right.
So the story that you're talking about is ex-BlackRock executive Salim Ramji is named Vanguard CEO. This story was on RIA Biz. Very quickly, Salim Ramji is now the new CEO of $7 trillion Vanguard. He was formerly head of their ETFs and index investing. He's replacing Tim Buckley as CEO. So what are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, it was a huge surprise that Tim Buckley was retiring. He's not really kind of retirement age yet. But I guess that is I'm sure an intense job and one that thoughtful decision on his part. But so it was a little bit of a surprise when they said he was retiring, but clearly planned because they decided to go out and do a search and he wanted to communicate it. And so they did that, and it was really interesting to me because at the time I didn't immediately connect it with Vanguard, but it was roughly about the same time that Salim decided to step away from BlackRock. And I've met Salim a few times at BlackRock. Really, really inspirational guy, inspirational leader, great leader for the iShares business, did amazing things while he was there. Really one of those people that you're like, this is an empathetic leader who people like to work for. He was rumored to be looking at a number of different opportunities, and then this announcement came across the wire that he'd been named the new CEO of Vanguard. And I think it's going to be really interesting. I think that, he clearly has the pedigree from the index investing space. I think, the bogleheads who are a little bit nervous about an outsider coming into Vanguard probably have nothing to fear because, what did he do at BlackRock but really invest in the index investing business and drive down the cost of ETFs. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how that plays. One thing I will say is he always loved the idea of tech-enabled services, right, at BlackRock. And it's going to be really interesting to see if any of that strategy starts to work its way into Vanguard's plans as well.
I like Ramji because he was a former consultant.
There you go. I mean, former McKinsey guy, how could you go wrong?
Of course, you can't. But it's a big shoes to step into. I mean, Tim Buckley had been adding something like 750 billion in assets per year at Vanguard.
Yeah. Well, it's an incredible franchise. I mean, Vanguard is just, you can go out there and talk to civilians who know nothing about the wealth management industry, and they will know the name Vanguard. And it is really synonymous with accessible and affordable, not necessarily innovative, right? And so that to me is going to be like the really interesting question is, does Salim feel like that's the real key to accelerating that growth is to make Vanguard a little bit known for innovation, and what will he do in that regard? And again, that it's always interesting to me when you take a space like asset management, very strong market, very strong space, a lot of very strong companies, but not very differentiated products. That's the great challenge in asset management. And what he did at BlackRock was try to use technology as a differentiator. It'll be really interesting to see, what strategy he formulates for Vanguard.
It certainly will. All right. And that article, by the way, RIA Biz, written by my good friend Brooks Southall, who lives on a houseboat.
He does.
Next story up is Trade PMR hires John Patullo as Chief Product Officer. Also RIA Biz by Brooks Southall. So John Patullo,
breaking all kinds of news.
Breaking news.
Yeah, that's right.
Now Chief Officer, previously at stints at Apex Clearing, Schwab Advisor Services, and TD Ameritrade. So he's been bouncing around a lot. And it lands at Trade.
I mean, this was a shocker, right? Because, first of all, we all know what John accomplished at TD Ameritrade. Like it was.
We don't. People who don't know, what did he?
Okay, maybe not everybody knows what John did, but most people know what John did at TD Ameritrade. I mean, he built the TD Veo platform that was really the gold standard for how RIAs operated on a day-to-day basis in their custody platform, and it was very integration first. And the ecosystem that he really helped to form at TD Ameritrade was very powerful. And one, I mean, it was very interesting to have a custodian be like I want to say it was second or third most popular integration at Riskalyze. That was not common for custodians. It was usually the CRMs or the financial planning tools or things like that were our top integrations, or the portfolio accounting wealth platforms like Orion and Black Diamond and so on and so forth. And so to get a custodian in there, I think was really interesting and spoke to the work that John did. And he created a real competitive advantage for TD. And, Schwab, I would argue, has done a pretty good job of the transition, but they obviously have been under a lot of really interesting cost pressure this year with everything that's been going on with first the regional banks and then kind of the similar contagion that was happening with bonds and bank balances and the interest rate environment and how that was putting pressure on different companies' finances, including Schwab. So they had the cost pressure. And, to be honest, no knock on Schwab as a firm, but I kind of scratched my head at some of the franchise names that they let out the door. There are some amazing alumni of Schwab that are now, kind of off working in a variety of different spaces across the industry. And John, of course, is one of those. And he kind of took a good chunk of his team over to Apex. And, I have not talked to any friends over at Apex yet, so I can't speak to why they made the set of decisions they made. But, I have not heard any reason to believe that this marks Apex stepping back from trying to serve RAs. But I would say, boy, what a coup for our friend Rob over at Trade PMR to be able to bring in a talent like John at Trade PMR. I mean, Trade PMR has always been working very hard to kind of take what has been a small RA custody business and put it in a good position. And they've done a lot of product innovation over that time. And boy, this is just going to put that on steroids. And I'm pretty excited to see what John can accomplish at Trade PMR.
But let's roll it back to Apex. So Apex is very similar to Trade PMR in some respects, that they're both the next tier of custodians. They're in different positions, but they're still both custodians.
I think that's fair to say, yeah.
Space, right? So going to Apex and then leaving after a year, without really moving the needle there. Apex did launch their own advisor workstation product.
Yeah. I mean, look, I can't, I don't know, and wouldn't want to speculate as to why they made the decision that they made. But I would note that you're right that they're in the same tier, but they come at it from two very different places. So Apex, right, is the clearing firm for so many different fintech innovation providers. And so RIA was like a new market that they were trying to enter, and they've had a few fits and starts on that. Like, I really like Bill Capuzzi over there,
Mhm.
and the I just an awesome like A+ individual, like really hardworking guy. But they've had some fits and starts trying to get the RIA business going there. My good friend and fellow Nitrogen board member Trish Rothschild was there as a part of one of the first efforts there.
Mhm.
And then now this John Patullo thing. So I don't know what those super high quality people are kind of running up against, but entering RIA custody is not for the faint of heart. Exhibit B, Goldman Sachs, like still not full-fledged in the RIA custody business, despite having thrown a lot of money and a lot of people at the problem. They're getting there. Trade PMR though comes from it like they have been kind of methodically call it tortoise in the hare, but like they've been methodically building towards being a full-fledged RIA custodian for some time, and they've been serving the market for some time, held back perhaps only by the fact that their clearing firm is First Clearing, owned by Wells Fargo.
Yep.
And so they don't get the benefit of being able to bring assets over without repapering, right? And so
Right.
The breadth and depth of their advisor platform is going to take a big leap forward with John there. I mean, that's pretty clearly what he's planning on doing. And he is, I'll put it this way, I feel like he's at least now starting on second base rather than building from scratch. So it's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out.
What do you think of Trade PMR versus Apex versus Altruist versus some of the other, Goldman versus the other players in the space? How is this going to shake up?
I mean, it just, first of all, shows you kind of the breadth and diversity of the industry. First of all, like custody is hard. It's a hard business. I probably know 10% of what you need to know to actually be successful in the custody business, but I've looked at it and tried to learn more about it from time to time, and it's a super interesting business. But you've got these very dominant players with Schwab and Pershing and Fidelity. And it used to be that there were 4 dominant players, and now it's down to 3. And so everybody's sitting there going, well, okay, it's going to go back to 4, and I want to be one of those 4 in the top tier. And so you've kind of got, there you go. You've got Trade PMR, Altruist, Goldman Sachs, and Apex all vying for that 4th spot, let's say. And if you want to think about it that way, it'll be really interesting to see how that shakes out. Goldman is really, I would argue, coming at it from a brand perspective. Like, what brand do you want on the client statements? Going out to the client, and you want to say that you're, kind of had this affiliation with Goldman Sachs, that could be positive for you as an RIA. It's interesting. Yep. Okay. Apex, I think, is trying to go at it from hey, we're a big clearing firm, but we're very digital and forward on tech. But they need the advisor platform and capabilities to match that, which is what they've been trying to work towards for some time. I think that Altruist is like the pure technology company that started as a technology company and then focused on building custody from scratch. It has a huge number of advantages because you can move faster in innovation. And it has its drawbacks too, because there's so many things that you have to build out to be good at custody. So the RAs that use Altruist love Altruist from everything that I've heard, but there's just a number of them that can't really consider it yet because, they can't do fixed income, or, they can't do this, or, they can't do that. So that leaves Trade PMR, which is a bit more mature as an RIA custodian. Again, it's been kind of a tortoise in the hare story, and they've been just systematically and methodically working. And nobody knows more people than Rob. And, I don't know if you notice, they actually are doing television advertising on CNBC. I find it interesting because I have it on my office, and Rob comes up on my screen every hour or so. Talk Trade PMR. So It really is an interesting story, and I think the bringing John on board is just a really good positive signal. I'd be taking a look at it if I was an RIA.
Okay, so real quick, I know you got to go. In the next 60 seconds, how does Trade PMR, Apex, Schwab, not Schwab, Trade PMR, Apex, Goldman, the rest of these next tier custodians, how does they get impacted by Envestnet's announcement of integrated custody being available by the end of the year?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, because now Envestnet comes in and says, no, wait, I think we'll be the fourth player in the top tier.
Mm.
And the biggest thing that Envestnet has going for it is massive built-in distribution. The real question is how they execute the custody product. Like if they make it very simple and seamless, and it's like you have a compelling reason to leverage their custody, and it's one click easy, and like the experience is better. Envestnet is not going to rip out their Fidelity or Pershing or Schwab rails,
No.
But if they have the one click easy button and the pricing's competitive, they're just going to get a bunch of custody assets by virtue of it being the one click easy button. And it's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out and whether it leaves space for that second tier to make it into the first tier.
There you go. All right, man. I know you got to run. Thanks for your insights.
Great.
Aaron.
Thanks for having me.
Take care. Next up on the news, I'm going to bunch up a couple of stories here that are related. So first up, we have AdvicePay appoints Kelsey Lewis as president. I'm going to combine this story with a story on XYPN, because they are both related companies owned by the partners Alan Moore and Michael Keatsis. So we're grouping these stories in this part of the news. But starting with AdvicePay, appointing Kelsey Lewis as president. Now, of course, AdvicePay founded by Alan Moore and Michael Keatsis, with Alan Moore being the CEO of that firm, as well as CEO of XYPN. So he was a dual CEO, sort of like Elon Musk, except not a trillion billionaire. But still, hardworking, brilliant guy, Alan Moore is, and AdvicePay has grown extraordinarily fast from the time that they founded it just a few years ago. I believe they are approaching 15,000 paying advisors on AdvicePay, including many enterprise deals with some of the largest broker-dealers in the country. Now, Alan realized that it was too much for him as a part-time CEO or dual CEO. So they announced a search for a rock star CEO. I really love the headlines in RIA Biz, with my friend Brooke Southall coming up with these incredible headlines. So last year in February, when they announced they were doing the search for a new CEO, the headline read in RIA Biz, Alan Moore is the #2 busiest man in the RIA business, and he just convinced the #1 busiest man, who would be Michael Keatsis, to budget $200,000 to hire a rock star CEO to replace him. And that's true. Michael Keatsis is the #1 busiest man, and Alan Moore is most likely the #2 busiest man in the RIA business. And bringing in a CEO seemed like a great idea, since the company was growing so quickly. And in July 2023, they brought in Alex Sawicki, who was the former CEO of Circle Black, and also coincidentally in New Jersey State Legislature, which I happen to know because I live in New Jersey. However, he did not last long, only 7 months. He departed the company in March 2024. According to Michael Keatsis, it wasn't the right fit, so we parted ways. Makes perfect sense. Happens all the time with companies, especially growing ones that are converting from the founders to an outside CEO. It's hard to find that right fit. So they tried it, didn't work. And now they decided to hire from within. And Kelsey Lewis, who had been at AdvicePay for over 2 years and was their head of customer success, is now being promoted to president with CEO-like duties, according to the firm. Before AdvicePay, she was director of business operations at a packaged food company. She's based in Montana. Director of client experience for a company that built a learning management system, and also on the client experience side for an e-commerce live chat application. So she's really got tremendous experience in the client experience area. We've worked with her a bit. Some of our clients use AdvicePay, and we've done a number of AdvicePay deployments at broker dealers. So we interact with Kelsey quite a bit, and I think this is a great hire. From what I've seen her building out the customer success organization basically from scratch, building the vision, the strategy, the tactics. From what I can see from the client side, doing a really good job there. Their client success and client support teams are incredibly responsive, and things just don't fall through the cracks with those guys. I was really impressed. And we work with a lot of vendors. We've seen a lot of customer support teams where stuff falls through the cracks, where they get people who don't know what they're doing. There's turnover. They hire people, don't train them well. Haven't seen that at AdvicePay. They've really done a great job with that, and it's really to Kelsey's hard work and efforts. Some statistics also in this article. They report a 36% increase in transaction volume since Kelsey took over customer success at AdvicePay, and they've maintained 100% enterprise customer retention rate, which is incredible in our industry because enterprise firms can be a little picky, and if they don't like the way something's working, they might just throw it right out. So the fact that they've had a 100% retention rate is a testament to the whole team, Alan Moore being at the top, and then Kelsey and the rest of the AdvicePay team there. So kudos to them from hiring within, and all the best to Kelsey in her new role. Moving on to a related company, XYPN. The XY Planning Network is announced their AdviceTech competition, and applications are open. So if you don't know what XY Planning Network is, it's for fee-only financial planners, and again started by Alan Moore and Michael Kitsis, grown tremendously. I believe they announced they have over 1,700 advisors that are part of the network. That will make them one of the top 10 broker dealers in the country, or top 20 broker dealers in the country at 1,700 advisors, if they were a broker dealer, which they are not. But they do provide a lot of services similar to broker dealers in that they offer practice management, they offer a tech platform. They just don't do things like compliance and those types of things. Although I think that's in the works. They don't have a corporate RIA, things like that, but they do a lot of the other areas of support for fee-only financial planners, and tech is a big part of that. And they announced they've done this AdviceTech competition since 2016. And a couple of the noted winners of the AdviceTech competition at XYPN include Snappy Kraken, great company. They won the 2016 edition, and they are now the number 2 ranked digital marketing platform in the 2023 Kitsis AdvisorTech study. 2017, Vestwell, that builds out what they call a robo 401k or a robo retirement planning tool. That was a 2017 winner. They're at vestwell.com, and they recently raised $125 million Series D in last year. So kudos to them. They're really killing it. 300,000 businesses on their platform. Another explosive company seeing tremendous growth as a startup in 2019 was Holistaplan, won the competition back then, and they've gone from dozens of users in 2019 to almost 30,000 advisors using the platform today, and turned it from tax management, tax planning from a backwaters category of less than 5% adoption to over 45% or 50% adoption rate across advisors. And in 2022, which at the XYPN conference, Income Lab won, and I was the moderator of the AdviceTech competition that year. So kudos to Income Lab for winning that event. So if you are a company, a startup, and you meet specific criteria, I'm going to list them right now, so you can enter in this competition. If you are focused on fee-only financial planners, if your firm has launched in the last 12 months, so if you're more than 12 months old, not going to let you in, and you have to have less than $1 million in revenue, and you have to have an actual product that you believe is differentiated from existing solutions, and it's independently priced, so it can't be part of a giant suite of other tools. If you meet those requirements, contact XYPN at the xyplanningnetwork.com and sign up for the Advice Tech competition. I'm not moderating this year, but it should be someone fun. And it's great publicity for, even if you don't win, just getting in the competition is great publicity and it's a great event. I will be at the XYPN conference this year. So hopefully I'll see some brand new tech that we can review at the conference. Looking forward to it. And now it's time for my favorite part of the news every month. It is the AdvisorTech map and integration scoring. So in this segment, I'm just going to go over the new applications that Michael Keatsis and I added to the AdvisorTech map. You can find the AdvisorTech map on keatsis.com. You can just search for it there. It's off the main menu, or you can go to keatsis.com/fintech map. Starting off our new applications, actually, there's an existing application called OnPoint, OnPointe, which was already on the map. Their website is OnPoint Software, but they wanted to be changed. We added them to specialty planning retirement. I think they were something, they were also in risk analytics because they have two separate product offerings. So I believe they are on the map twice, which is a boon and a bonus, since very few firms get that opportunity. Let's see, do we have risk tolerance? We have OnPoint, yep. And we have OnPoint in specialty retirement because they have a specialty retirement solution. So they got another logo on the map. Congratulations. OnPoint, you can find them at OnPoint with an E at the end of point, onpointsoftware.com. Next up, Investipal. It is a digital onboarding solution. That's another area where we were looking at the category at possibly combining it with another area, because you look at digital onboarding, as well as we used to have a section for robo-advisors, which we converted into digital onboarding. But workflow support is also very similar to digital onboarding, since some of those workflow support applications also do onboarding. So there's a fair amount of overlap there. And of course, every portfolio management application has some sort of onboarding. So you should be able to see that in the AdvisorTech directory. If you look up onboarding, you would see a lot more applications, but there is a fair amount of overlap, as well as document management and workflow. Those also overlap. So digital onboarding is another area. Excuse me. So we have Investipal was added there, and you can find them at Investipal, investipal.co, not .com, but .co. Now, their website to me looks a lot like a direct-to-consumer website, but they also have a separate part of the website for financial advisors. So it's sort of a robo solution as well. I think Michael and I are going to be looking at this digital onboarding, since a lot of these firms have expanded their capabilities beyond just onboarding into basically full-fledged wealth management platforms that also are digital and also offer digital advice like a robo would. So Michael and I are talking about that, what to do with the digital onboarding category. But for now, it stays as digital onboarding. Next up, Archive Intel. Archive Intel is a new application, which is now in the communications archiving category. We used to have just a compliance category, but we added communications archiving since it had gotten so large for companies like Smarsh and Global Relay and others, Redtail, that just handle archiving of social media, texting, emails, and the like. Archive Intel is interesting. It was launched by Larry Shimbers, who is a founder and CEO. He was the CEO of a company called Prezults, which is also a communications archiving application vendor. And he left there and launched a competitive firm called Archive Intel. So that was interesting. See, Archive Intel, you can find them. Let's see. archiveintel.com, just as it is spelled. Seamless compliance, intelligent archiving, one solution with AI precision. I don't like all this AI talk about things that don't seem to require AI. If you're archiving my communications, I don't really care that you're using AI to do it. I just want to know you're doing it properly and that you according to the regulations that will keep me from getting audited by the SEC. Whether you use AI or not doesn't make it any better for me personally. And I'm not really sure how they're using it, but to me, that doesn't seem very useful for archiving communications using AI. But archiveintel.com, .co, go check them out. Next up, counter-cyclical. This is a new application in the growing investment data analytics category, which I think at last count had 48 applications squeezed into that little box, and more keep coming every month. Counter-cyclical using the unusual.io domain name, a domain extension, which previously had been the focus of crypto companies. IO was very popular when the crypto fad was hot, but counter-cyclical decided to jump on the .io. So you can check them out. Investment Research Reimagined. Counter-cyclical is your centralized platform for performing extensive value-oriented analysis. I don't understand why we keep getting more applications in this category, but they keep coming and coming. Counter-cyclical. Next up, this is an application we're going to talk about, which did not get on the map, and I'm going to tell you why. It's from a company which I respect greatly called Intentionally, founded by my good friend Kelly Waltrick. And it's a marketing company, and they have a very interesting product called Advisor Brand Builder, which you can check out at advisorbrandbuilder.com. However, we did not add it to the map. The reason being is that Advisor Brand Builder is not itself a software application that advisors can buy and use on their own. It's really a very cool tool that Intentionally is using to complement their marketing capabilities and website development, brand development capabilities. Nothing wrong with the software. I've gotten demos of it. It's very cool. I would check it out. But we have strict rules about the map that an application to get on the map has to be software that's standalone. It's not part of a service offering or sold as a package with something else. It has to be standalone software. That's just the way the map was developed. And it's the map, the design of the map is to help independent advisors choose software. I believe Michael is starting to work on a services map. So Advisor Brand Builder, as well as Intentionally's marketing services, will go on that map. But we couldn't put Advisor Brand Builder on the WealthTech software map. It just doesn't qualify, but still check them out, advisorbrandbuilder.com. I'm not going to mention the name of the next application because another reason if you're emailing Michael and I about adding your application to the map, make sure you actually have an application. Vaporware will not get on the map. So a company whose name I'm going to censor or not spread around out of hopefully that they'll actually will build some software. Don't want to embarrass them, but they sent us an email to please add our application. When we go to look into it, there really isn't any application. It's just vaporware. So that's another way you're not going to get on the map, vaporware. Okay, so that's all the new applications we had for this month. There was one other application called Water Lily, specialized planning healthcare. But I think, do we add them? Specialized planning healthcare, Water Lily, specialized planning. Man, specialized planning is crazy. There's over 70 applications now in specialized planning. Okay, so we didn't add Water Lily this month for some reason. I have a note here that it's on a wait list. So maybe because the application's not available yet. Oh, you have to join the wait list. That's right. So Water Lily is personalized long-term care planning. Their actual domain name is joinwaterlily.com. Because it's not available yet, we didn't put it on the map. When it's actually available to be purchased, it will be added to the map under specialized planning healthcare. All right, so that's all the applications we added. We did make some changes. So things do change on the map, we change categories as needed. We move applications around if they change their focus or they get acquired or other things. So for example, Allbridge was under performance reporting, and that application has been merged into Pershing Wove, the former Pershing X, Pershing's new wealth management multi-custodial platform called Wove, has been Allbridge merged into that. So we removed the Allbridge, the separate application, since you can no longer, according to Pershing, you can no longer buy Allbridge separately. It's now part of Wove. Another change, Objectway is a company based in Italy that has some portfolio management software, but they're really more an enterprise platform, not for independent advisors, and based in Italy, they don't really sell into the US. So we took them out of portfolio management, but they acquired a company called Nest Wealth, a Canadian-based tech firm that does onboarding, and they are on the map. So I think we changed the logo to Objectway because they were acquired, but we deleted Objectway from portfolio management. Another change was Tiffin Wealth. They have pivoted. They were planning light, and they changed their focus to more of a sales enablement, proposal generation. So we moved Tiffin Wealth into sales enablement from planning light. And finally, we deleted WealthCare GDX. It's an application that's really part of a TAMP, WealthCare's TAMP. It does do financial planning, but it's not sold standalone. And again, as I mentioned earlier, the map is designed for standalone software applications, not applications that are part of other offerings. So WealthCare GDX got deleted. That's the summary for the Advisor Tech map. Again, check it out at Kitces.com, Michael and I's work, my work. michaelkitces.com/fintech map. Now, moving on to integration scoring. All the applications you just heard that were added will get into our scoring queue and will be scored and added to EzraGroup.com. And if you go to our website, EzraGroup.com, you can find all the integration scores off the menu that says what we do, and then WealthTech integration scores. And on that page, you can see the score for any application on the map, either individually or by category. So if you wanted to go to specialized planning as a category, or let's say client data gathering, what did we just talk about? We were just talking about risk. We were talking about communications. So if you went to communications archiving as an example, you would see pre-results, and eventually you'll see errata, which is the #1 score of a 8.81, my rep chat, right behind it, 4.57, pre-results, 4.53, Redtail Speak, behind that, 4.38, then XY Archive, a bunch of other ones. So in a couple of weeks, you will see Archive Intel show up on this page, the communications archiving category on the Ezra Group WealthTech integration score page. One thing I want to talk about, if you are a vendor on the map, you have an application for advisors and you're on the Kitces Ezra Group map, you should, and you have a good score. So if your score is 6 or above, you should talk to us, give us a call, go to our website, EzraGroup.com, and use the Contact Us page and ask about our WealthTech Integration Score Recognition Program. What this does is allows you to use the coveted Ezra Group badge, integration badge, either a badge that says your score is excellent, if you have a 6 to a 7.9, or superior, if you have a score of an 8 to a 10. You can use the badge corresponding to your score, and that badge gives you some major benefits. You can put that on your website, you can put it on your marketing materials, into email, and show your clients and prospects that, hey, your integrations have been validated by Ezra Group and they have been seen as being good, or at least excellent or superior. There's also some other benefits. We have a quarterly private webinar with research on integrations and other technology and wealth tech trends that only recognition program members have access to. And plus, you get 4 hours of meetings with our integrations team, where they can help you understand the integration score, help you increase your score by building out or deciding which integrations to build that would give you the most benefit or most bang for your buck when it comes to integrations, and any other questions you want to ask our crack integration team. So please go check out ezragroup.com and go to the homepage and use the Contact Us form and ask about the WealthTech Integration Score Recognition Program. All right, you've made it to the end of another episode of the WealthTech Today podcast. Thanks for listening. But before you go, please head to our website, ezragroup.com, scroll to the bottom of the homepage, and sign up for our newsletter. Once a month, you receive email chock full of wealth management goodness, news, information updates. You will not be disappointed. Thanks again for listening, and talk to you all again next time.